They were never afraid of you. They were afraid of what was standing behind you. I want you to sit with that for a second, because I think you have spent most of your life believing a lie about yourself. And the lie goes something like this: there is something wrong with me. Something off. Something too much. Something people can sense the moment I walk into a room, and it makes them uncomfortable. And so they pull back. And so I must be the problem. I'm going to take that apart today, piece by piece, until there's nothing left of it. Because what you have been calling a defect heaven has been calling an assignment. And the reason people flinch around you isn't that you're broken. It's that you're carrying something they don't have a category for. My name is George. I've spent years sitting across kitchen tables from people who thought they were losing their minds. And every single time what they were actually losing was their agreement with a lie. I want to do that with you today. But first, let me tell you about a key. Imagine somebody hands you a key. Heavy, old, cold, in your palm. And you spend 20 years walking up and down a street trying it in every door you pass. The neighbor's door, the employer's door, the door of the church that told you to sit down and be quiet. And it doesn't turn. Not once. Not in 20 years. So what do you conclude? You conclude the key is defective. That is the lie. That is the exact lie I want to dismantle. The key was never defective. The key was in the wrong hand's doors. It was cut for a lock that has not yet appeared on your street. The first lie, if it were real, people would celebrate it. Let's start here, because this one is the foundation stone. Pull this one and the whole wall comes down. You believe somewhere underneath the surface that a genuine gift from God would be welcomed, that if it were real, people would recognize it. Your family would celebrate it. Your church would make room for it. Your friends would say, yes, that's you, that's exactly you, and you would finally feel like you fit. And because none of that happened, you assume the gift isn't real. I need you to hear me. That assumption has no support anywhere in Scripture. None. Show me one person God set apart who was immediately embraced by the people closest to them. You can't. Because it doesn't exist. Think about Jeremiah for a moment. God tells him something staggering: before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. That's not a promotion. That's a pre-existing appointment. It was decided before his mother knew she was carrying him. Before he had done a single thing right or wrong. And what does Jeremiah do with that information? He argues. He says, I don't know how to speak. I'm only a child. He tries to hand the key back. He'd rather believe he's inadequate than believe he's appointed. Because inadequate is comfortable, and appointed is terrifying. And then he obeys. And then his own hometown, the people who watched him grow up, the people who knew his father, the men of Anathoth plotted against him, his own family, the people who should have been proudest. That's the record. That's how it actually went for the man God named in the womb. So when you tell me your gift can't be real because your sister rolls her eyes, or because your co-workers went quiet when you shared what you saw, or because the pastor changed the subject, you're not giving me evidence against your calling. You're giving me evidence for it. The pattern is the pattern. It has never changed. The second lie, I'm too intense. Here's the next one. This lie usually got installed early. Childhood, maybe. Somebody said you're too sensitive, or you take things too seriously, or why do you always have to make everything so deep? And you learn to shrink. You learn to check yourself before you spoke. You learn to test the temperature of the room and match it, never exceed it. You learn to laugh at the joke you didn't find funny, so nobody would notice you were somewhere else entirely. I want to describe a place to you. A grocery store aisle at 11 at night. Fluorescent lights humming. Almost nobody there. Just you and a stock clerk. And the sound of the freezer motors. And you're standing there in front of the cereal, not because you need cereal, but because it's the only place in your life where nobody is asking anything of you. Where you don't have to perform being normal. I've talked to so many people who know that aisle, who've stood in it, who go there without knowing why. That's not depression. Not necessarily. Sometimes that's a spirit that has been holding its breath all day, finally exhaling. Here is the truth underneath the lie. You are not too intense. You are appropriately intense for what you're carrying, and inappropriately intense for the room you were placed in. There's a difference between a fire that's too hot and a fireplace that's too small. You have spent years apologizing for the fire. Nobody ever thought to check the size of the fireplace. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Ray. Ray ran a small engine repair shop about 40 minutes outside the town where I was pastoring. Chainsaws, lawnmowers, the occasional outboard motor, grease on everything. A radio that only got one station. Ray had a thing about him. People came in with a busted carburetor and left having told him about their marriage. Happened constantly. He never asked. He never pried. Men who hadn't cried in 30 years would stand at his counter with a mower deck between them and lose it. And Ray thought this was a nuisance. He genuinely did. He told me once, half joking, half not, that he'd considered putting up a sign that said, "Repairs only." He thought something about his face was inviting the wrong kind of conversation. He thought it was slowing down his work. He'd been doing that for 19 years before anyone told him what it was. 19 years of what I would call some of the most consistent pastoral care in that county, happening over a counter, with the radio on, and the man doing it thought he had a problem with boundaries. That's what I mean when I say you don't recognize your own gift. It doesn't announce itself. It just shows up as the thing you're always accidentally doing. The thing that keeps happening to you. The thing you've been low-grade apologizing for since you were a child. Ask yourself what you've been apologizing for. That's usually where it's buried. The third lie, if I were chosen, it would feel better than this. This is the one that keeps people up at night. You've read about calling. You've heard the sermons. And they made it sound like being chosen comes with a warmth, a certainty, a settled peace that you have never once experienced. What you have experienced is confusion, weight, nights where you couldn't explain to your own spouse what was pressing on you. Prayers that came out as nothing but "I don't understand." So you figure, well, that's not what chosenness feels like. This must be something else. This must be anxiety. This must be a personality flaw. This must be me. Let me be blunt with you. In love, the peace you're describing is real, but it is not the entry fee. It is the far side of the thing. It comes after, sometimes long after. Jeremiah is called the weeping prophet, not the smiling prophet, not the settled prophet, the man who was named by God before he had a face wept openly and often, and he said things that no one wanted to hear, and he was thrown in a pit for it, and he sank down into the mud at the bottom of it. Was he chosen? He was chosen before his own mother knew he existed. So the mud is not evidence against the calling. Read that again. The mud is not evidence against the calling. Sometimes the mud is just what's at the bottom of obedience, in a season when nobody's listening yet. The fourth lie, if it's real, it should have produced something by now. This is the practical one, the one that shows up in your bank account, and your calendar, and the ordinary math of your life. You've got this thing in you, this capacity, this sense, And you look around at your actual life, the job that doesn't use it, the bills that don't care about it, the years that keep going by, and you think, if this were from God, wouldn't it have gone somewhere? Back to the key. I want you to picture something with me. A man walking a street with a key, and every door is wrong. He tries them all. He gets angry at the key. He almost throws it in a storm drain more than once. And then one day, and I want to be careful here, because I don't want to promise you a timeline God hasn't promised you, one day the street changes. A building goes up that wasn't there, or an old one is opened that had been sealed, and the key fits. And here's what I want you to understand about that moment. He didn't earn it by trying harder on the wrong doors. All those years of trying wrong doors didn't make the right door appear, but they did something else. They kept the key in his hand. That's what those years were for. Not to open anything, to keep you from throwing the key away. You are still holding it. Do you understand what that means? Some people didn't. Some people put it down at 26 and made peace with a smaller life and never picked it up again. You didn't. You're here, watching this, at whatever hour it is where you are, still holding a key that has not opened anything yet. That's not failure. That's fidelity. Those are completely different words, and you've been using the wrong one about yourself. The fifth lie: people pull away because they see something bad in me. Now we come to the hardest one, the one that hurts. You've watched it happen. A friendship that cooled without explanation. A family member who's polite but never close. A group that thinned out around you, and you've spent years running the tape back looking for the thing you said, the thing you did, the flaw they must have seen. I want to offer you a different reading, and you can weigh it yourself. Before God, I'm not going to force it on you. People don't pull away from what's beneath them. They pull away from what exposes them. There's a certain kind of person who walks into a room and, without saying a word about it, makes everybody quietly aware of the parts of their life they've been avoiding. Not by judging, not by preaching, just by being clear in a room full of fog. And the natural human response to that is not gratitude. It's discomfort. And discomfort, if it isn't dealt with, turns into distance. They weren't afraid of you. They were afraid of what standing near you made them see about themselves. I said that in the first 15 seconds of this video, and I'm saying it again now that you have the rest of the picture. They were never afraid of you. They were afraid of what was standing behind you. Sit with the difference. It changes the entire history of your relationships, every one of them. A confession. Before we go further, I want to stop the teaching for a minute and tell you something true about me. There was a stretch of about 4 years where I didn't believe any of this about myself. I could say it to other people. I could say it with conviction, and mean it, and watch it land. But I could not receive it. There's a particular kind of loneliness in that being able to hand someone a lamp you can't see by. I had the key. I knew I had the key. And I was so tired of doors. What got me through that was not a revelation. It was smaller than that. It was a woman in my congregation, she's with the Lord now, who said to me in a hallway, offhand, not even looking at me, "George, you're not lost. You're early." That's all. 4 words that mattered. You're not lost. You're early. If nobody has said that to you, I'm saying it now. And I want to put something in your hands. Because there came a point where I realized the thing I most needed during those 4 years was not encouragement. It was language. A way to name what was happening to me while it was happening. That's what I built the secret protocol for. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the Spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrived, things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the Awakening Map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. The link is pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. Now let's finish taking the lie apart, because there's more of it left than you think. The 6th lie: I need to understand it before I can use it. This one sounds humble. It isn't. It's fear wearing a nice coat. You've been waiting for clarity. Full clarity. You've been telling God, sometimes out loud, sometimes just in the shape of your prayers, show me the whole thing, and then I'll move. And God keeps showing you one step. Jeremiah didn't get a map. He got a sentence. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. That's it. That's what he was working with. He did not receive an outline of 40 years of ministry, the names of the kings who would ignore him, the pit he'd be lowered into, the city he'd watch burn. He got one sentence about who he was, and he had to build the rest of his life on it. You are asking for a level of information that God has never, in the entire record of Scripture, given to anybody before they moved. And there's a mercy in that you can't see yet. If he showed you the whole road, you would not take the first step. You'd measure it and decide you weren't enough. He gives you one step, because one step is all you can carry. And by the time you need the second, you'll be a different person than the one who's watching this video. The key doesn't need to understand the lock. It just needs to be in your hand when you get there. The 7th lie: it's too late. I want to talk to somebody specific right now. You're past a certain age. I won't guess it. But you're past the age where you imagined this would all be resolved, and there's a quiet grief in you about that. You look at younger people moving and you think, that window was mine, and it closed. Here's what I'd say to you, and I'd say it sitting down, not standing up. God is not on a career timeline. Moses was 80. Not 80 in the abstract 80 years old with a wife, a flock, a completely settled life in the wilderness, a past he'd made peace with when the bush lit up. Anna was old and widowed and had spent decades in the temple when she saw the child she'd been waiting her whole life to see. If God were operating on a human clock, he would have to be an incompetent manager. He's not managing, he's orchestrating. Different word entirely. And listen, the years you think you wasted, they weren't a detour from the calling. They were the calling, in a form you couldn't recognize. You were being made into someone who could carry the thing without it destroying you. There is a version of you at 24 who received this gift in full and was ruined by it. God protected you from that person by making you wait. I'm not asking you to like that. I'm asking you to consider it. What's actually left when the lie is gone, so we've pulled it apart. Let's see what's standing. If it isn't true that a real gift gets celebrated, and it isn't. If it isn't true that you're too intense, and you aren't. If it isn't true that chosenness feels good on the front end, and it doesn't. If it isn't true that unused means unreal, and it isn't. If it isn't true that they pulled away because of something bad in you, and they didn't. If it isn't true that you need the whole map and you don't. If it isn't true that it's too late, and it is not, then what's left? What's left is a person with a key in their hand, walking a street, at the exact point on that street where God intended them to be at this hour. That's all. That's the whole thing. Not a defect. Not a mistake. Not a personality problem. A carrier, mid-journey, still holding what was placed in their hand before they were born. An interruption. I want to say something to the person who has been sitting through this whole thing with their arms crossed. You've heard messages like this before. Maybe a lot of them. And they made you feel something for about a day and a half. And then Monday came, and the feeling burned off like fog, and you were back in the same chair with the same problem and a slightly worse opinion of yourself for having been moved. I know that cycle. And I want to say plainly, I'm not trying to give you a feeling. Feelings are cheap. Anybody with a microphone and a slow voice can give you a feeling. What I'm trying to do is take something away from you, which is a much stranger gift and a much less pleasant one. I'm trying to take away an explanation you've been using for your life. The explanation that says I'm the problem. And if I succeed, you're going to walk around for a while without an explanation at all. That's uncomfortable. You'll want the old one back. Because a bad explanation is still an explanation, and the human mind hates an open question. Sit in the open question anyway. Give it a week. Don't rush to replace the lie with something tidy. Because in that gap, in that uncomfortable, unexplained space, is usually where God says the thing He's been trying to say to you for years, and couldn't, because you had the room full of your own conclusions. Why it scares them, the part nobody explains. Let me go one layer under the fear. Because I don't want you to walk away from this thinking people are your enemies. Most of them aren't. Here's what happens. Most people build a life around a set of agreements. Agreements about what's possible. Agreements about how much you're allowed to hope for. Agreements about what you settle for and when you stop asking questions. And those agreements are load-bearing. Take them out, and the structure moves. You are a person who did not sign the agreements. Not out of rebellion. You just couldn't. Something in you wouldn't. You kept asking after everyone else had stopped asking. You kept feeling things after everyone else had learned not to. And when a person like that walks into a room, everybody else's agreements start creaking. Nobody enjoys the sound of their own foundation creaking. So they leave, or they minimize you, or they find a reason you're difficult, and they go back to a room where the walls are quiet. That's not hatred. That's self-preservation. And you can forgive it much more easily once you see it for what it is. I'd rather you walk out of this video with compassion for them than with a grudge. A grudge is heavy, and you're already carrying enough. The thing you're supposed to do now, I'm not going to give you 7 steps. You've had enough lists. I'm going to give you one instruction. And it's small, and I want you to actually do it. Stop presenting your gift for approval. That's it. That's the whole instruction. Every time you've shown it to somebody and waited to see their face, every time you've floated it in conversation and watched to see if they bite, you were asking a person to authorize something God already authorized before you were born. Jeremiah did not run his calling past the men of Anathoth for a second opinion. It's a good thing too. They tried to kill him. The authorization already happened. It happened in the womb, before your parents named you, before anyone had an opinion. There is nobody living who has the standing to confirm or revoke it. So stop asking. Use it quietly. Use it where it's needed, rather than where it's noticed. Let the key stay in your hand, and stop trying it in doors that were never cut for it. You'll know the right one, not because it looks impressive, but because it turns. A last image I want to leave you with: the street. You've walked it a long time. Long enough that the walking itself became your identity. You started thinking of yourself as someone who doesn't fit anywhere. And that became a kind of home, and I understand that. Because a sad home is still a home. But you're not someone who doesn't fit. You're someone whose door hasn't been built yet, or hasn't been opened yet. And the difference between those two things, and not fitting, is the difference between waiting and being rejected. You have been waiting. You have never once been rejected. Not by Him. And the key is warm now. It's been in your hand so long it's taken the temperature of your body. You've stopped noticing you're carrying it. That's how long it's been. Don't put it down in the last mile. Before you go, I want to ask you something, and I want a real answer, not a nice one. Tell me about the door you tried the longest. The one you kept going back to even after you knew it wasn't turning. Was it a person? A job? A church? A version of yourself you were trying to become so people would finally be comfortable around you? Put it in the comments. Name the door. And tell me how long you stood at it before you walked away, or whether you're still standing there right now, this minute, with the key in your hand, and your other hand on the handle. I read these. I'm going to read yours. And whoever you are, wherever you're watching this, from the one who cut that key, knew exactly which lock he was cutting it for. He has not forgotten. He is not late. And the door is closer than the street makes it look.